Questions about what possessions he would own and how his environment would be set out. I started to think about, like, he's on his own, what he does in his time, thinking about how he has everything in one room, one space, so that everything's accessible. And I wanted this idea of clutter, and so that's why I've set out putting the rooms full of books, crowding space, and there's not really much, if any, spare space available. Yeah, well, it was more giving direction to the actor to try and interpret my vision of how I wanted it to be, how I wanted the character to act. And so it was more just giving a little bit of direction and then just letting the actor take that into his own interpretation. And I think through doing that, for instance, within the set, I asked him to set out things how he might set them out, like the shoes by the fireplace. And also when we were on set and on location, just do things that were similar to his characteristics. And through doing that, it brought a whole new depth to the character, especially like some of the movements outside when we were going across the Pelican Crossing or chasing the birds. And there's a lot of elements within the character that I can see coming through from the actor's own characteristics. The way that he acted within my direction, I felt he portrayed it and gave it a new depth, if you like. Because also sometimes with doing something like this, you can become so involved in exactly how you want the character to look and act that I think it's sometimes nice and fresh to have an actor that necessarily isn't associated with the book, hasn't read the book, and so only through my interpretation, only through my direction do they know how to act. But within that, giving them the realms in which to bring their own depth, their own thing to it. The real highlight is just seeing the character evolve on film, just like everything beginning to come together. There was definitely a low point today, was my shot that I wanted to have down at the Rendezvous Cafe, and I've never known it so busy today. But we eventually got that shot in, and I worked around the fact that I mightn't have been able to get that shot in by doing an alternative shot, which I was happy with as well, but this shot was with the coins on the table was something that I really felt I should get to tie in that idea of loneliness, and you know that he just, these odd little things that he does. Just I think that's the attention to detail is what I try to go for, because the attention to detail is what's going to draw the audience in, rather than, obviously there's no dialogue. So that's something that you've got to compensate through that through forms of visuals, like him chasing and running at the birds, and kicking a stone, quite mischievous things, not necessarily associated with a man of his age. And that's something like you begin to build up a picture or a character, who this guy is, why is he doing all this weird little things. Through a lot of the footage that I've shot today, you can definitely see that there's, and through the space and the setting, there's definitely that representation of loneliness, and just, you know, not having anyone, but still that like playfulness. So it's not necessarily that he is obviously quite an introvert character, but it's not that he's so introvert that he doesn't want to interact with anyone, that he just doesn't. It's the fact that there isn't anyone for him to interact, there isn't anyone there for him to socialise with or anything like that. He has no one. I was really happy with the cafe shots in the end, and also some of the space and shots in which are like interjection shots where it's like the idea of him playing around and doing things elsewhere. I'm happy with some of them, especially the way in which they move, and hopefully I think I've took enough footage today to be able to cut between each ones to give that sense of like a full day out playing sort of thing. I'm happy with in here, the location and the setting, and I feel it really fits the character, and I think that through being able to work around different shots within here, that's what I've been really happy with. And I think I've got the lighting within here, I'm happy with it. Maybe post-production I might change some of the colours and the contrasts, maybe bring them down a notch, giving it a little bit more of a darker tone, because the lighting this weekend has been terrible, and so I've had to use the artificial lighting through the window. And I think lighting again. I think I need to think in the next one. I need to think a bit more about continuity of lighting, because I think in some of the shots, although in some of the shots it is a different time of day, and so I've changed that via the lighting itself, actually physically moving the halogen lights outside that shine through the window to give that element of time passing. But I think like outside, because it was such an up and down day with the weather and things like that, I think that might be a problem. That's something I have to maybe look at changing. I think I always work as the storyboard is, it's key frames that I need to get, and then from that I then work around that. So every storyboard that I do, and I've done this all the time, is I'll have a clear idea of a shot that I want, but when you come to film it, it doesn't always necessarily work that way. So for pretty much every key frame within that, I've probably shot that individual scene from 4 or 5 different angles, so I do obviously in a sense veer off from it. And there's obviously things like running at the birds today, coming across the crossroads, and that's just something that's really good about taking the character out in the location and almost doing that like what Lars von Trier does, like Dogma-esque. So it's actually like he's in character, but he's doing something that's like, you know, but people think he's being that person. Do you know what I mean? Because the people like almost documenting it like voyeuristically, like what I have been doing, but with him in character, which I think is something quite nice. But it gave that sense of realism, like people's reactions and stuff like that. But yeah.